Have you ever asked why some women live alone without a partner, without even searching for one? It's not because of heartbreak, loneliness, or lack of options. It's something deeper, more uncomfortable. Something that quietly dismantles everything we've been told about what a woman should be. When a woman chooses solitude, it's not a descent, it's a discovery. This kind of awakening doesn't invite applause. It arrives in silence, in strength, and in a freedom that still unsettles most. She's not cold, she's just done burning. For those who never wanted to feel the fire, there's a threat in a woman who doesn't need a relationship to feel whole. She breaks the illusion of control, dismantles emotional dependency, and reveals a hard truth. Most men don't know what to do with a woman who doesn't need saving. And many women still struggle to recognize that reflection in themselves. Carl Jung said that everything we deny becomes part of our shadow. These solitary women, unapologetic and inward-facing, are the shadow made real. They don't demand love. They embody choice. They don't dress for attention. They retreat for preservation. They're done chasing peace in someone else's arms. They've built it in their own. The woman who lives alone isn't adrift. She's operating at a different frequency, where nothing is begged for and everything is chosen. She doesn't need your validation. She holds her own presence. That's why she's judged, labeled, misunderstood. But behind what looks like absence is a presence that challenges the entire emotional status quo. She doesn't crave just any love. She wants a love that doesn't shrink her. And until it arrives, she stays intact, complete. Maybe you don't believe it. Maybe you think it's pride drama or a mask for past wounds. But if you listen closely, there's a quiet pulse inside you asking, what if this silent path leads to the only love that actually matters? Sometimes the silence around a solitary woman is mistaken for emptiness. But it's not a void, it's a sanctuary. She didn't build walls to shut the world out. She built space to keep herself in. Jung also said, we project what we don't face in ourselves. And many women confuse solitude with lack when really it's the soil of transformation. While others chase connection to fill a gap, she turned inward. In the dark of her own psyche, she met the ghosts of childhood wounds, unmet needs, love disguised as pain. Her solitude wasn't born of fresh hurt, it came from a scar that had finally closed. She didn't stop believing in love. She stopped accepting what only dimmed her light. This woman has known emotional chaos. She's loved to the point of loss, given too much, begged for crumbs. But then she woke up, not in a single moment, but over time through disappointments that turned from pain to instruction. What you now call coldness is actually emotional maturity. And that kind of maturity demands presence, not performance. She doesn't chase empty promises. She craves presence that stands firm. So yes, she may seem unreachable, but it's not because she's distant. It's because she no longer needs to be saved. She wants to be seen. And that requires courage, depth, the willingness to meet her where most never dare to go. She doesn't intimidate because she's loud. She intimidates because she's whole. And when a woman becomes whole, the world responds in extremes. Some with admiration, others with fear. Those still fractured feel exposed by her wholeness. She's not here to complete anyone. She's waiting for someone who's already met themselves. Until then, she walks alone, not from bitterness, but from loyalty to her own soul. She's not hiding, she's preserving. There's a vast difference between isolation and self-protection. Yet the world still clings to the myth that a woman without a partner is a woman who failed. It can't comprehend someone who chooses depth over dependence. Jung said, where convention rules, authenticity shrivels. And she doesn't live by convention, she lives by essence. She hears people say, "You're too picky. Nobody's perfect." And she smiles not bitterly, but with a calm that says, I know what the bare minimum is now. It took decades to learn. She's not chasing perfection. She's waiting for someone whole enough to love without harming. And let's be honest, that's not easy to find. Her presence stirs discomfort, not because of what she says, but because of what she represents. She is proof that a woman can be complete without depending on anyone. That reality shakes men who prey on insecurity, and it unsettles women still stuck in cycles of approval seeking. But she's not out to challenge anyone. She simply exists. And in doing so, she becomes a mirror one that reflects freedom back at those still living in quiet chains. She's not in a rush. She's not performing. She respects her own rhythm. And that patience confuses a world addicted to urgency. While the world chases stimulation, she longs for depth. While the world offers attention, she seeks presence. While the world flashes curated lives, she chooses solitude with meaning. When she says no, it's not manipulation, it's honesty. When she leaves, it's not punishment, it's protection. When she stays home instead of settling, it's not pride, it's clarity. And that clarity is her quiet rebellion. She doesn't live to please, she lives to be. And that simple choice makes her dangerous to a system built on needing approval. What disturbs others isn't her solitude. It's the peace she's found within it. Jung said, those who look outward dream. Those who look inward awaken. She chose the inward path. It wasn't glamorous. It was brutal, peeling back masks, confronting emotional dependencies and stitching herself together again. She no longer sees herself through the eyes of others. She sees with her own. And that shift changes everything. How often have you wondered if being alone means you're broken? How often have you felt you needed to explain your solitude? She's been there. She once believed something was wrong with her too. But one day, she realized better alone than invisible beside someone who doesn't see you. That day, she made a vow, never again would she accept less than she deserves. Her journey hasn't been straight. There are days filled with doubt, nostalgia, and silence. But there's also strength, quiet, earned strength that grows with every decision made in truth. She learned that love doesn't cage or consume. It adds, uplifts, liberates. Until that love comes, she walks alone, not out of ego, but out of integrity. She is Jung's individuation made flesh. She's faced her shadow, descended into her depths, and returned more whole than ever. Now that she knows who she is, she will never again settle for being half of anything. She doesn't want someone to complete her. She wants someone who sees and honors her completeness. That demand for emotional responsibility intimidates many, because most still love out of lack, fear, or control. If she walks alone, it's because each step is rooted in wisdom. Every no she gives is self-respect. Every boundary she enforces is a reminder that love is not something to be begged for. She doesn't prove her worth anymore. That certainty born from her soul radiates outward. She's become dangerous, not because of power, but because of clarity. The woman who lives alone now is not the same one who once pleaded to be loved. Something inside her broke, and that breaking was her liberation. Only through collapse did she find her shape again. Jung said the tree that reaches heaven must have roots that touch hell. And she's been there into her own inferno, into ancestral trauma, old pains passed down through generations. She broke the patterns. She stopped accepting love that repeated old scripts. She no longer believes it's her job to fix others or accept crumbs out of fear. When she chose to stop settling, the world pushed back, called her selfish, cold, delusional. But she stood firm, first with doubt, then with awareness, now with invulnerability. Because someone who has lived in their own abyss no longer fears being alone. She's learned to find warmth in her own presence, comfort in her own silence. She's not distant, she just refuses invasion. There's a difference between opening your heart and being torn apart. She opens, but only for truth. She no longer falls for empty words. She sees through performance. Her intuition has become sharp, her energy precise. She walks away without hesitation from anything lacking depth. Her transformation isn't just personal, it's archetypal. As if some ancient memory awoke in her a truth that women weren't born to serve, but to express. Not to shrink, but to overflow. And in remembering that something primal returned, a wild woman, sovereign and intuitive, a woman alone, but never lost. In fact, she's now in communion with something deeper than society's expectations, with her own unfolding destiny. No matter the label cold, picky, arrogant, none of it sticks. She's not trying to fit in anymore. She's here to expand. She's done competing for attention. She simply radiates. She's not waiting to be chosen. She does the choosing, and that reversal of the old rules. It confuses those still trying to control the feminine. But she's already gone. She crossed the threshold. And what she found there was simple and sacred. The real relationship begins only after you've loved yourself enough not to need anyone. She doesn't need validation. She walks in quiet confidence. Carl Jung once said that everything we face within becomes our destiny. And by choosing herself over and over, this woman has authored a life few understand, but many secretly long for. She no longer fills voids with fantasies or begs for love to prove her worth. She doesn't chase space in anyone's life. If the invitation isn't real, she simply steps away. No resentment, no performance, just the dignity of someone who's been lost too many times to repeat the same wound. Yes, she still longs to be held. She still aches to be chosen, not as a possession, but as a soul. But she won't shrink to fit anyone's frame again. She's done contorting. She'll only enter spaces where she can be whole. That takes more than romance. It takes awareness, shadow work, self-recognition. She's not looking for fairy tales. She seeks alliance where both people rise side by side, not above or beneath. No dimming, no silencing, no sacrifice of self. If that feels like too much, then so be it. She'd rather wait in fullness than survive on emotional crumbs. That's not arrogance, it's clarity. And in that clarity, a new archetype is rising. A woman no longer driven by the need to be desired, but by the need to be respected. A woman who didn't give up on love. She just finally understood that real love never demands self-denial. When she walks into a room, she doesn't need to raise her voice. Her presence speaks first. The energy shifts softly, but undeniably. This isn't mysticism. It's the force of someone who has faced her wars and returned in peace. Not because she conquered her fears, but because she learned to live with them. Jung said we become whole, not by eliminating opposites, but integrating them. She is that integration. Not all light, not all softness, but full, honest, alive. She doesn't reject love. She just no longer submits to imbalance. She wants a love where she doesn't need to edit herself. A love that holds both her shadow and her flame. Because those who only want the pretty parts haven't understood love yet. Those who expect constant sweetness haven't tasted the bitterness that births wisdom. She's too complete to settle for fragments, too awake to tolerate cages dressed as care, too sensitive for shallow bonds. And yet she walks this path anyway, even when it stings, even when it's lonely, even when she's misunderstood. Because this is what it means to awaken to trade quick comfort for deeper truth. The world still fears women like her, women who don't need, Women who don't kneel. Women who refuse to be shaped because they shatter old codes, those quiet emotional contracts that once claimed a woman's worth was tied to being with someone. But she rewrote that contract. She became her own story, and in doing so, she gives others permission to do the same. So yes, she moves forward, sometimes crying, sometimes glowing, but always grounded. Because she knows she is not alone. She has herself, and that after everything is more than enough. The love that follows won't be salvation. It will be celebration. It won't come to fill her. It will meet her already full. When a woman chooses to walk alone, the world calls it a mistake. But deep inside, she feels something aligning. It's not rebellion. It's wisdom. The kind born in silence. The kind Jung called individuation, the becoming of one's whole self. When that happens, nothing external holds more power than the quiet truth inside her chest. That truth doesn't shout. It reveals itself in small acts, the way she closes a door, the way she leaves when the space no longer nourishes her, the way she smiles, even without a hand to hold. Because being alone is no punishment. It is a vow to remain loyal to her soul. And a woman who has awakened no longer begs, dims, or explains. She simply is. The world will keep offering noise distractions, plastic romance, but she's seen behind the curtain. She understands now it was never about finding someone. It was about never losing herself again. And when that truth blooms, everything changes. What once hurt now teaches. What once bound now releases. Desire becomes discernment. Waiting becomes sacred. Emptiness becomes choice. You can feel it, can't you? That pulse inside. Maybe it's a memory. Maybe it's the woman you once were, or the woman you are becoming. Whatever it is, it's asking to be seen, to be honored, to be awakened. Because the woman who walks alone isn't missing something. She is becoming everything.